Hey, it's Joseph here with another video, and I've been absent from making videos for quite a few months. It's probably been about 6 months or maybe even longer. But what's inspired me to come back today is a contest that's put on by Craig Danger at Vinyl Record Player. And he's celebrating his 3 year anniversary as being part of the vinyl community. Uh, Craig has a great channel. He's always full of excitement, especially for soul music. He's really, that's his field of expertise, but his videos are always a lot of fun, and I always look forward to his new stuff arriving usually on Sundays. And so, celebrating his 3 year anniversary, he's running a contest where people from the vinyl community are sharing their blind buys and their experience in buying these particular record albums that they bought blind, and how they liked them and how they worked out. So, with no further ado, I will jump into my 5 blind buys, and here we go. This is back in the day when I first started collecting back in the 1970s, way back when I was a teenager. Almost a lot of records that we bought were blind buys because, of course, there was no YouTube, or there was, um, if it was not played on the radio, you didn't really get a chance to hear it. So the way I learned a lot about certain bands and albums that were coming out was through Downbeat magazine, the jazz magazine my dad used to subscribe to, and also Rolling Stone. Back in the day, it was really a good resource with the record reviews, and you could take them with a grain of salt, but they were recommendations on some of the new or unheard of albums that were coming out. And the first album up is an album called Dreams. And this is the album. And I first heard about this album in Downbeat because it really was a remarkable band. It was a jazz rock band. Back in those days, I was an aspiring trumpet player myself, so I was really enjoyed jazz rock music, like the music that Chicago and Blood, Sweat, and Tears was putting out. And so I was always looking for other horn bands that kind of had that similar vibe and similar sound, using trumpets and saxophones and trombones. And this one definitely fit the bill because on this album, it's got the Brecker Brothers. This is one of their first appearances on an album, especially with Michael and Randy together. And also in the band is, of course, Michael and Randy Brecker, Billy Cobham, who would on drums, who would go on to be in the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and of course a great career all on his own too. And also a great trombone player named Barry Rogers, who made quite an impact in the salsa sound in New York, especially with Eddie Palmieri, the recently passed Eddie Palmieri. But it's a good album. There's my favorite track here is Holly Be Home, a great trumpet solo by Randy Brecker. Dreams, and self-titled Dreams. Next up is another blind buy from back in the day of my teens, and it's I Think We're All Bozos on This Bus by the Firesign Theater. And this one is kind of going out on a limb because this is not a music album, this is a comedy album. And in the 1970s, when Cheech and Chong were all the rage, I was looking for more contemporary comedy albums. And So I was always just looking at the bins for anything that might catch my attention. And I saw these guys, the Firesign Theater, and I heard that they had been part of the LA radio scene, the underground radio scene that was going on in the late 60s and in the 70s. And this one definitely fit the bill. It's way more outside than anything Cheech and Chong ever did. It's kind of a futuristic look into what the future might be, but it still holds up pretty well today. And they went on to have quite a career. They had many, many albums. And if you ever see a Firesign Theater album and you've never heard of them, check it out. Usually they're almost next to nothing, and you'll get a good laugh. Might be somewhat dated now, but it still fits the current vibe of what's going on even today. So the Firesign Theater, I Think We're All Bozos on This Bus. Now this is somewhat of more of a recent blind buy, and this was a thrift store buy, and it's called It's by Gene and Eunice, and the name of the title is This Is My Story. And there's the back. I bought this one. It was almost in mint condition for a couple of dollars at the Goodwill a couple of years ago. And I had never heard of Gene and Eunice, but they are early rhythm and blues group. They recorded from these particular tracks are from the 1955 to 1957, but a really good duo. Kind of maybe reminds me a little bit of early Peaches and Herb, but more in a rhythm and blues groove. And I think these were all released on the Aladdin label, so you know it's good stuff. So I'm really glad I took a chance with Gene and Eunice. This is my story. Last weekend we had a record show here in Rio Grande Valley, and I'm a big blues fan. And the first table I went up to, they had a whole bunch of blues, and I ended up spending most of my buys there, or spending my money there at that particular table. And one of the albums I took a chance on was by blues singer Leroy Carr. Now, I've heard of Leroy Carr before. He was a piano player, blues singer, which is a little bit unusual because, of course, most of the blues singers. This is from the 1930s, and most of the blues singers, performers in those days, of course, were guitar players. But he was one of the handful piano players, blues singers, and he had a duo with guitar player Scrapper Blackwell. But I really enjoy Leroy Carr. He was kind of set up the style for later piano player blues guys like Charles Brown, and of course the crooner style of Nat King Cole. But I'm really glad I took a chance on Leroy Carr. He does some standards like How Long Blues and a couple of other great things. But Leroy Carr, some early piano blues. An album that I took a chance on maybe a year or two ago, maybe a little bit longer, was I found these at a local flea market. They had that particular seller had a couple of albums by this singer named Claire Hamill. This one's called October. And Claire is a British folk singer from Britain. And I saw her name back actually in the day, back in the 70s. I heard her mentioned in Rolling Stone, some pretty good reviews. So when I saw her album in the wild, a couple of her albums, two or three, I picked them all up, and I'm really pleasantly surprised. She has a really wonderful voice, some beautiful compositions, and I've been digging the sound of Claire Hamill, October. Now, a couple albums that maybe quite didn't work out, and my apologies to Craig Danger at Vinyl Record Player, because I know he's a big Willie Hutch fan, and I've been on the lookout for some Hutch albums, but the only one that I have found has been this one, Willie Hutch, Concert in Blues is the name of the album. And it's not a bad album. Hutch sings well, he plays some guitar, he does a lot of standards, a lot of covers, Stormy Weather, I Wish You Love, Stormy Monday, Shake, Rattle, and Roll, and it's not bad, but it's just not all that great either. So I keep on trying to give it another spin or so, but I know Hutch has a couple of really great soul albums. Like I say, Craig Danger, he's always praising the talent of Willie Hutch. So I'll keep my eyes open, and maybe I'll give this one another try. But it's Willie Hutch, Concert in Blues. Did not quite work out for me. And another one that didn't quite work out. I'm a big British folk fan of bands like the Fairport Convention, the Pentangle, and that sort. And I really love the Fairport Convention's work with Sandy Denny. So I bought this one, Fairport Convention Full House. And this is the album that they released right after Sandy Denny left the band. And I picked it up for almost next to nothing. But I've given it a couple spins, and I really miss the presence of Sandy Denny in the band. Of course, they have it's a great band in themselves. Richard Thompson is taking over most of the vocals, and of course, great guitar. But once again, Sandy Denny is missed. But I'll still give this another try. And that's one that hasn't quite worked out as of yet. So those are my blind buys entering Craig Danger's contest. I'll leave some links down below. And if you're interested in jumping in, you can check out his channel where he goes into more detail about the contest. And glad to be back. Have a great day and talk to you again soon.